Hold your head up, it's Cassie says figile. The time is now today.
Halloween, Sanbonani Etekwini. This is the 100% Talk Show where we give you always 100% talk for 100% real people. How are you doing, everybody? And my name is Tembeka Vilani. I'm going to give you the talk that is 100% authentic and real, because that's what we only give you here on the 100%. So today we have yet again just a fantastic guest. This lady, I need to contain myself from the excitement that I have. But before I do get to her, there are a couple of people that I'd like to mention and thank who made this day possible and what it is. So first off, I would love to thank Do Confidence Designs. You know, this lady that has made me look so absolutely wonderful. This is her own top. She makes them herself, by the way, and she is available at shop number 3 at Village Walk at Ushaga Marine World. I would love to give a huge shout out to Isimodeni Creations for these absolutely amazing jewelry pieces. Now, she does custom make her pieces, but she does have items for sale as well. Please do find out all social media platforms. Here are details on the screen, and she will hook you up. I'd love to give a huge shout out to Amped Tech. They are our sound engineering providers. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do the audio, and without that, it wouldn't work. I'd love to give a huge shout out to Miss Talent Mzobe. Now, this lady, she's a very important part of this whole thing, because she's the lady that makes me look presentable to you. She's the lady that did my makeup. Please do find her on my social media platforms as well. She is available there and she will beat your face up. I'd love to give a huge shout out to Artistic Soul Agency. Now, they are the guys that help us with our graphic elements, because those we don't have much expertise in, but they do help us. So thank you very much to Artistic Soul. And to our hosts today, the Durban ICC. This is our lovely home for today. They have opened their doors and they've hosted us so wonderfully. So we want to give a huge thank you and a huge shout out to the Durban ICC. Without you, we wouldn't have a home for today. So thank you very much for opening your doors to us. Now, as I've promised you, we have an amazing guest today. She is a facilitator. She is a motivational speaker, but a transformational motivational speaker. She is an African history educator, and she is a lecturer as well. Everything African, this lady embodies. I always say Africa was born in her and not the other way around. Please put your hands together and help me welcome with a warm welcome, Ma Yaa Ashantewaa Ngidi.
Thank you very much.
So Ma Ashantewaa,
yes,
thank you so much.
It's such a pleasure.
It is such an honor. So you're originally from Ghana, am I correct?
My ancestors are from Ghana.
Yes, okay.
And I happen to be very fortunate to have been brought into this realm in Jamaica. So I grew up in the Caribbean.
Okay.
And then at the age of 17, I went back to the African continent because I needed to reconnect. And from Ghana, I ended up in Denmark. From Denmark, I ended up in Liverpool. From Liverpool, I ended up in Japan. From Japan, I ended up in India.
So how did you end up in all these countries? So
yeah.
what was the thing and what was the mandate?
So in the Caribbean, there was a bursary for African children who are in the Caribbean. And I got to a place called Denmark where nobody looked like me. And 4.5 years later, I studied Scandinavian history. I majored in European architecture and history.
Wow.
Because I wanted to understand how Europeans lived. And I did my second degree in applied linguistics.
And so you went back to Ghana after that?
I went back. I don't do going back. I do. Good. All my journeys lead me to the other one. Sure. From Liverpool, I ended up in Switzerland, where I worked with the UN as a volunteer.
Okay, so is that how that journey
someone saw me and thought, this young lady needs to be out of here. And they said, we have a gig in Kenya. Do you mind doing maybe 6 weeks in Kenya? And I was like, what? Yes. What time? And I did 41 African countries after that. At that time, I could speak German, French, Portuguese, English, and Spanish.
Wow.
Because I'd learned the languages.
Wow.
And so I knew that I could be an interpreter or I could be a translator. And when the offer came for Kenya, I never looked back. I always laugh about the time I ended up in Nigeria. When I landed in Nigeria, the first thing the guy said to me is, Madam, you mean all of that your body? Go for Stamp Nigeria. And you not pay anything. It's just, you're gonna come in here free. And he said, Madam, you're so big, and you're going to be walking all over Nigeria, and you're not paying any taxes for that. And that's how I entered that beautiful, amazing country. You're like, wow, this man not only appreciates that I'm this big woman, but he also appreciates that, you know what, there's a fine for all of that niceness.
So what were you doing in these countries?
So my work, I was a technical facilitator. So I'm the one who went ahead and talked to the stakeholders and made sure that everybody was aware of what the program was going to be. So it was all the development programs. So the women would have to be spoken to. We'd have to explain to them what's going to happen. Do they want it? Do they not want it?
And what kind of projects were these?
So for example, the cooperatives. So for example, in Ethiopia, we spent a lot of time with the cotton, the women who did cotton.
Were you ever in a situation where you had to facilitate like a war situation?
In Somalia, yeah. We were locked down in Somalia for about, 9 days.
How did you get yourself out of that sticky situation?
My father always told me, humor. Don't be too sweet. They'll swallow you. Don't be too sour, they'll spit you out. So having studied wherever and wherever became irrelevant.
Became irrelevant, right?
Because the truth is that human relations are always expanding themselves in front of you. And at no given time, bookwork can solve the problem. Bookwork is a nice to have.
And what is your take on that? About education, like do we need to change the education structure? Or
there's really no education structure. What it really is a regurgitation of somebody's story. But we're becoming illogical. So one of the things that I wrote when I began to unschool myself from all of this education was Africology is a logical study for Africa. About Africa for Africans. And the idea was that we've had 1,000 years of illogical experience. Nothing about our existence, even to this minute, has been logical. It's illogical for an African woman to be tapped on her head. And it came from the schools in Europe, where they would hit you on your head because that finished your dumbness. Africology in its totality asks that you understand certain things. You push the buttons. And I decided nobody's gonna tap me on my head because I was not born dumb.
So what was your journey coming into South Africa?
So I had been asked, people having seen my interaction with the different women communities, there was a request from South Africa, can you send a team to prepare women for the elections? I was in Bloemfontein for 6 months. And I went back to Kenya and they called me back. They said the people in Bloemfontein loved you so much. We want you to come back and be a part of the conference. 3 weeks before my time was up. Every evening when I got into Soweto, I took a taxi. Because I wanted to learn the language. One night at 11, I got out of the taxi and I stopped at the police station at the corner of Dobsonville. And the police officers were waiting for me. They said, no, because we know that you always jump off at 9 and we didn't see you coming, so we thought something is gonna happen. And it said, no, you are one of us, so we have to take. And they waited on me, and I remembered in that days thinking, I'm not leaving here. South Africa became the country of my soul. From my work, I never continued with the international work that I was doing because I realized that my skill was more needed here. And I started the Center for African Renaissance in UNISA under Thabo Mbeki. All of the facilitation work I was doing was about getting women to take on the role as custodian of culture.
Let's go back to Mr. Ngidi, right?
I was in Pretoria at the time. We were training all the diplomats on African value system. So part of my work was to bring in the African element of how we do things as Africans. And there was this man just always looking at me. And the rest is history.
No!
The rest is... And the one thing he said to me is, every day I've seen you for the 3 weeks on this course, you only wear African attire. I made a conscious effort that all my clothes had to be made. And I never, this is now my 30th year, I've never bought anything. It was important for me to walk the talk and from top to bottom.
The lady who sponsors all our outfits.
Beautiful.
Yes. Do Confidence Designs. They're in She has an outlet now in Rushaga Marine, but she makes her own clothes. We can't boost our economy if we don't boost our economy.
Exactly. That's what I saw in places like Kenya. That's what I saw in places like Nigeria. That's what people bought things that they made.
Why can't we trust our own?
I think we've been sold an illusion. We've been told to hate ourselves. We've been told that everything else looks better.
So institutionally.
It's been systematically done. And we have not learned how to unsystematically undo those habits.
That unlearning. That
The
you're talking
unlearning.
about. Yeah.
When you become a mother, there are certain value systems you want to leave with the children. And I did it deliberately because if people don't see it happening, it's just an illusion.
Now tell us about the institution of Africology.
Africology began in 1998 in Uganda. Africology was based on a community living.
Okay.
That we would do an element of farming.
Okay.
Would be African food.
Yeah.
We do an element of production. The idea was, how do we allow South Africans to understand that in learning to love themselves as Africans, we're going to also have to learn about the greater Africa. So part of Africology's work was, one, to help us to have spaces where we can unpack this Africanness. And secondly, to use whatever part of your Africanness to spiral you into a greater understanding, but to go deeper.
Greater, yeah.
And so the language of superiority and inferiority has been taught to South Africans. And so now young people have been working on getting out of that bad habit of where you're from, but you don't sound South African. That conversation is such a terrifying conversation for Africans. People say, how can you get a degree in Africology? I don't want anybody to have a degree in Africology.
Right.
Because your only degree is your degree of humanity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in choosing your agency and in choosing your path as an African, that's what makes your degree important. Because from the very beginning of my day to the time I end it, my whole existence is being aware that Africa's liberation is dependent on me.
How do we multiply this message? How do we make it broader and bigger and wider?
I'm really grateful that you found your way to bring me here. In choosing your agency, I don't know how you do this, but if you do it knowing that your value system is based on making Africa proud of what you do. One of the things that Africology does is remind you that teaching is remembering, learning is teaching, because each one must teach one.
If we were to take a takeaway right now, as a parent, as an educator, and as a youth person, what would be the takeaway that you'd give to those three people?
I think to the youth, I will say to them, be obsessed about Africa. Because when you're obsessed about your continent and yourself, you have no time to think about what other people are doing to you and not doing to you. I'm so aware of what I need to do that the distractions don't really get to me. And see, Africans have been distracted for so long that it's easy for us to oh, did they just say that they don't like my nose? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
To the parents. African parents have done a big disservice to their children. And one of the biggest disservice, and I'm not being judgmental, I'm just been observing, is that we would rather buy books about Snow White and not go out of our way to find a book that our children can see themselves in. We cannot say to our African children, we want you to take over this continent when you never introduce them to it. Every African parent must have a map of Africa in their children's room. How can your children dream about the big Africa if they have never seen it? The education that we're getting is a disservice to Africans because it's not educating us to be world powers. It's educating us to serve commerce.
Yeah. If there is a child out there, if there's an educator out there, if there's a parent out there, you know, I think now at least we know where to start. You know,
I don't understand why it's so hard to have a small umsamo in our homes. It's a picture of your grandfather, your grandmother. Every time you look at them, you remember where you come from. And you remember what they taught you.
Yaa Ashantewaa, how do we get a hold of you? I know you're the director of the Pansi Museum now.
Yes.
So can we just pop by there sometime and come and say hello?
I've just acquired an amazing piece of museum. It's now going to be called the Pansi Cultural Center.
Mom, we will not finish.
Thank you. I'm finished now.
We totally need to close. That was Yaa Ashantewaa, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for the last time. This was like, and thank you so much, eThekwini, for watching. Please do follow us on our social media platforms. We do have social media platforms because we want you to talk to us and tell us what you think, tell us what you want to see, tell us, you know, talk to us. You know, we are 100% Talk and we want to give you the 100% authentic talk right to your doorstep. My name, as always, is Tembeka Vilani. I love you so much, but remember, God loves you more. Mwah.